Cheers. Whew, that's good. Good morning. It is Thursday, December 23rd. I have not been out in this shop for like a week. I've been too busy at work, and I'm really excited to be out here today starting a project. I have had time to finish a bench I started a couple months ago. Just some finished work, but anyway, today I've got some Purple Heart, some mahogany, some zebra wood, and I've been wanting to try one of those Tensegrity tables or the Tensegrity design pieces. If you all have seen those, I'm gonna try and make one of those. I'm just gonna make a little, probably a little 10-inch one, just a little small one, and kind of flush out, attaching the cables or line or however I want to attach it. But I'm going to try just a very small design first, which I'm probably going to sketch out right here on my table. And if it works out, I'm going to make a bigger one. So here we go. Let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure my jointer is square. To do this, I'm going to be using my 1, 2, 3 blocks. Let the sawdust fly. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and get the face side jointed first. I find here in the shop that some pieces of equipment are funner to use than others. I love using this joiner. After I got the face jointed, I went ahead and got one of the sides jointed. After joining the face and one of the sides, I checked for squareness. To do that, I used a machinist square, and boy, does this thing look pretty. I try to clean as I go. What I'm doing here is collecting some sawdust before I sweep this up. You never know when you're going to need to fix a mistake. After I cleaned up the mess, I got ready to make another mess. I got my planer all set up, and what I'm doing here is making the side that I didn't joint parallel to the side that is jointed. It only took a couple passes, and it came out looking pretty. Here we are again cleaning up. I don't always clean up on the move, but sometimes it's just easier, and that's just what I'm doing now. I really like working in a clean shop. After cleaning up for the second time tonight, I moved on to the table saw. Right here, what I'm doing is cutting down the Purple Heart that I just milled down. I'm cutting it into 1-inch strips. Here they are, 1, 2, and 3. Time to move on. I then took the fence off my table saw and used a crosscut sled. I cut pieces to 5 inches, 4 inches, 8 inches, and 3.5 inches. It was a good day in the shop. 5 inches on the money. Well, I didn't really have a plan going into this, just an idea. I was going to write notes down on my table, but as you can see there, I didn't do it. Right here, I'm just fitting some things up, putting the pieces that match best together, then moving on. Now it's time for everybody's favorite part, mine included, sanding. All the mill work I did before this made this pretty easy. I just used 220 grit on my random orbital sander. It didn't take too long, just a few burn marks from the table saw I had to get cleaned up. I decided I was going to use dowel joints to help fit this thing together. So right here I'm just using my marking gauge and marking all the wood so I can get accurate dowels. I wrapped a piece of tape around the drill bit to make sure I didn't go too deep. Overall, this was pretty quick, pretty easy, and I'm pretty happy with the turnout. After I got all the dowel holes drilled, I took a little bit of time to mark each piece of wood so I didn't get them mixed up. Prior to drilling the holes, I lined them all up to where I thought they fit the best, and I didn't want to lose that where there's a lot of pieces that are the same length. There were a couple pieces that I wasn't super happy with after the kind of a dry fit up, so I took them over to the belt sander, and I made sure everything was flush and parallel and looking pretty. Once I was happy with the dry fit and finish, I clamped both pieces together. I then used a piece of string to help get me closer to my final measurements. Most of the holes on this are going to be covered, but one of the holes that's going to be exposed, I used a 1/2-inch Forstner bit, and I drilled out some of the wood so I could put a nice pretty button in it. After I got the whole situation figured out, I took just a minute and rounded over a couple pieces on my sanding wheel to make it look a little better once it's finished. Finally ready for glue up, I took some mineral spirits and put it on a rag, then I cleaned up the wood. I then let that sit for 20 or 30 minutes till it looked dry, and then I glued this thing together. I used quite a few clamps, and I'm at a stalemate, which is perfect timing because my camera battery actually dies about right now. After letting the glue dry for about 18 hours, I let it dry overnight and came back out in the morning. I began sanding again. This went pretty quick and easy, though I did get a little messy during glue up. I used the orbital sander for as much as I could, then transitioned to hand sanding. I then clamped the piece together, kind of making a makeshift jig. I used a piece of string and marked where I want the holes to go. Using a drill, I drilled the holes that I just marked using the string. Up to this point, everything's been going pretty well. Until, well, yep, I got a little carried away with the drill and snapped the bit off in the wood. Though I wasn't happy, the drill bit was a pretty easy fix, and I'm back to work. I made another little stand to help support this thing, and then I used 40-pound fishing line and ran that through the holes to help support this Tensegrity stand, I guess we'll call it. After I got the lines ran, I set the stand back up on my assembly table and messed around with it with a level up on top of it until I could get it as level as possible. When I thought it was right, or as right as I could make it, I used a dowel, put some wood glue on there, and pinched the line in the top of the stand, and then waited for about another 20 hours for that to dry. Once dry, I used a flush cut saw to cut the dowels level with the, flush with the top of the stand. I then set the stand on a piece of zebra wood that I cut, or that I'm about to cut, and I marked it with a pencil. After I had the zebra wood that was going to be the top of the stand marked, I took it over to the bandsaw and cut it out. There was just a little bit of cleanup work to do with the sander after this. I then dry fit the top. I think it looks really good. I love zebra wood. My patience got the best of me. I got the Ryobi Airstrike out and put some little 5/8" brad nails in it. I then put a little bit of wood glue on a Q-tip. I was really careful here because I didn't want any squeeze out. I put a thin strip down the top of the stand and tacked the top in place. Now this would have been much easier earlier on in the process. The next one I do, I will put the finish on it before I get this thing put together, but I learned. What I'm doing here is using boiled linseed oil and putting a nice coat on the stand. Now this is pretty cool. At this point I was pretty excited. I think it looks great. It's nice and flat up on top. And there we have that zebra wood. I love it. It looks good. I'm super happy with it. Now to see if this is actually going to work as a stand. This is a cup. It's almost full of coffee. And, well, there you go. It's actually a stand. It doesn't need to go in the scrap pile. That's pretty neat. Merry Christmas. I don't know if I'll get this video out today, but it is Christmas, about 11 o'clock in the morning. I just finished the little Tensegrity stand. Overall, very, very happy with it. It was fun. Surprisingly, a lot more challenging than I thought it would be going into it. But I learned a lot, and I still have some more Purple Heart, some mahogany, and even some more zebra wood. And I'm gonna use the mistakes that I made on this, learn from them, and come back and make a better one. If that's something you want to see on this channel, comment below and let me know. And been a really, really fun build. And I'll tell you what, it's stronger than it thought, and I probably didn't talk a whole lot about it during the build. I kind of did a different narration than I ever have before, doing the voiceover. That was new to me. I don't know if I'll do that again or not, but this is connected with 40-pound fishing line. And again, in just kind of doing this and building it, I've came up with a lot of different ways I think that I can improve on this design, make it bigger, stronger. One of the things that I want to do different is different jointery. But anyways, been a really fun build. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you soon.